Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. The Klythian palace shimmered under cold blue light, its colossal chandeliers of crystal suspended from the vaulted ceiling, glinting like 1,000 stars trapped in frost. Each facet refracted light into sharp beams, dancing across obsidian walls carved with ancient Klythian warriors, conquerors of 3 galaxies. Ethan Hayes stood defiant in the vast hall, his sleek alloy armor gleaming faintly under the glow, a lone soldier facing the universe itself. His piercing blue eyes locked onto Emperor Varkis, unwavering. His tousled brown hair fell across his forehead, accentuating the cocky smirk that had defined him since his days in the Terran Marine Corps. Varkis, a towering figure with metallic skin that shimmered like tempered steel, lounged on a throne hewn from meteorite stone. His 4 arms moved with commanding grace, each adorned with energy bands that hummed softly. His crimson eyes blazed with contempt, as if sizing up an insect daring to crawl before him. "I command you, human!" Varkis roared, his voice thundering through the hall, shaking the massive pillars supporting the dome. "Bring me a void Voran from the dead space, or your earth will pay in fire and ash!" The Klythian courtiers, their octopus-like heads writhing with jeweled tentacles, whispered excitedly, their curious gazes fixed on the small man standing before the throne. Ethan took a step forward, his armored boots clinking on the polished stone floor. He crossed his arms, eyes never leaving Varkis, his smirk deepening. "I refuse," he declared, his voice cutting through the heavy air, drowning out the shocked murmurs of the crowd. "I'm Earth's ambassador, not your errand boy. Want a peace treaty? Negotiate like a civilized being, not a tyrant barking orders." The hall fell into a deathly silence, broken only by the faint hum of Varkis's energy bands. Some courtiers shrank back, their tentacles curling in fear, anticipating the Emperor's wrath. Varkis leaned forward, his crimson eyes narrowing, a dangerous glint flashing within. "You forget your place, human," he said, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper, cold as the void of space. "The Klythian Empire rules 3 galaxies. Hundreds of systems kneel at my feet. Your Earth is but a speck, a backward planet unworthy of my notice." He raised one arm, pointing a metallic claw that gleamed menacingly. "Do you think you can defy me without consequence?" Ethan didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped closer, his gaze sharp as a blade. "That speck," he said, his voice laced with sarcasm, "has survived interstellar wars, natural disasters, and self-proclaimed cosmic overlords like you. Earth may be small, but we don't kneel to threats. Want to test us? Go ahead." The courtiers shuddered, some whispering about human arrogance. A wiry official with insect-like wings near the throne leaned in, murmuring to Varkis, but the Emperor waved him silent with a flick of his hand. Varkis slammed all 4 arms onto his throne, the impact echoing like an explosion, making the chandeliers above tremble, and their blue light ripple like waves. "The audacity of humans is remarkable," he bellowed, a cold smile curling his lips. "Very well, I'll teach you humility. But I won't stoop to deal with a lowly creature like you. Klyth!" His voice boomed, summoning her name like a curse, thickening the air with tension. From the shadows behind the throne, a figure emerged, moving with the lethal grace of a deadly wind. Klyth, the Klythian warrior, stepped into the light, her sapphire armor hugging her lithe frame, shimmering like a moonlit sea. 6 energy blades hovered around her, spinning like satellites of death, each emitting a faint purple glow and a soft, ominous hum. Her silver hair cascaded down, catching the crystal light, and her deep violet eyes gleamed with danger, as if they could pierce the soul. She paused beside the throne, bowing to Varkis, but her gaze never left Ethan, appraising him with a mix of curiosity and disdain. "My Emperor," Klyth spoke, her voice clear yet icy, like a silver bell ringing in a storm. "Your command?" Varkis pointed at Ethan, his claw glinting. "This human needs a lesson. He dares defy me, dares scorn the Klythian Empire. Challenge him, Klyth. Crush him before the court. Make him beg for mercy, so all who witness know none can oppose my will." Ethan raised an eyebrow, unshaken, though his heart skipped a beat. "A duel?" he said, his tone mocking. "This is how you settle disputes. I came to negotiate peace, not play gladiator for your court's amusement." The courtiers tittered, but their eyes remained cold, eager to see the human fall. Kayla stepped forward, one energy blade spinning in her hand, its purple light casting sharp shadows across her chiseled features. "Unless you're afraid, human," she said, her voice lowering, carrying a taunting edge. She stopped a few paces away, her blade hovering, ready to slice through anything. The crowd held its breath, their eyes darting between the undefeated Klythian champion and the outsider who dared challenge the Emperor. Ethan laughed, the sound ringing through the silent hall, startling a few courtiers. 7 years in the Marine Corps, battling on distant worlds, staring death in the face, had stripped him of fear for such threats. "Afraid?" he said, grinning broadly, his eyes alight with confidence. "Lady, I've faced bigger, uglier monsters than your Emperor." "Fine, Klyth. Name your weapon." "But fair warning, I don't like losing." Klyth tilted her head, her violet eyes narrowing, as if trying to read him. "Klythian energy swords," she declared, her voice sharp as her blade. "Tomorrow, at the Eternal Pit, before the entire court. You'll learn the cost of arrogance." She turned, her silver hair flowing, her energy blades orbiting her like a final warning. Varkis rose, his forearms spread wide, his voice booming like a judgment. "Tomorrow, human, you'll kneel before me or die under Klyth's blades. Court, prepare to witness the fall of this insolent fool." The crowd roared, their cheers echoing, but Ethan stood still, his smirk unshaken. He watched Klyth go, a spark of curiosity in his eyes. "Tomorrow's gonna be fun," he muttered under his breath, as the blue light from the chandeliers bathed his unyielding silhouette. The Eternal Pit, Klythia's central arena, was a colossal chasm, its glossy black stone walls etched with ancient war symbols, reflecting the faint purple glow of massive energy columns lining the floating grandstands. The stands, suspended by anti-gravity tech, brimmed with thousands of Klythians, noble courtiers with jeweled tentacles, burly warriors in silver armor, their gem-like eyes fixed on the pit's floor. Ethan Hayes stepped into the arena, his simple but sturdy alloy armor glinting under the flickering light. In his hand, a Klythian energy sword hummed, its white blade alive with a soft, predatory hiss. Lighter than he expected, it sliced the air with each practiced swing, leaving trails of shimmering light. The crowd roared, their cheers mixed with jeers, eager for the Earth Ambassador's defeat. Across from him, Klyth emerged from a stone gate, her sapphire armor sleek and lethal, moving like a deadly breeze. 2 energy blades orbited her, spinning like wings of death, their purple glow illuminating her silver hair, casting her as a war goddess from legend. Her violet eyes locked onto Ethan, devoid of emotion but hiding a sharp curiosity. Emperor Varkis watched from a floating throne, a massive stone platform carved with coiled void vorans, hovering at the grandstand's center. His forearms spread wide, a smug smile on his metallic face. "People of Klythia!" he bellowed, his voice drowning the crowd's roar. "Today, we witness the fall of Earth's arrogant fool. Klyth, my greatest warrior, will make him beg." The crowd erupted, their shouts shaking the stands, but Ethan only smirked, his eyes fixed on Klyth. "Begin!" Varkis commanded, raising one arm, his wrist's energy band flaring. Klyth struck like a storm, her body blurring into motion, leaving only streaks of purple light from her blades slicing through the dark. The first blade shot toward Ethan's chest, but he dodged, twisting with the speed honed over 7 years in the Marine Corps. His sword swung up, parrying the blow, sparks exploding like fireworks, lighting the pit's floor. The crowd roared, some mocking, but Ethan stayed calm, his feet dancing on the rough stone, retreating to draw Klyth in. His blue eyes tracked her every move, searching for a flaw in her flawless assault. Klyth gave him no time to think. Her second blade spun, aiming for his legs, forcing Ethan to leap back, his sword deflecting the next strike. Metal clashed, the hum of energy ringing like a deadly symphony. "You're faster than I thought," Klyth said, her voice cold but tinged with surprise, stepping back as her blades orbited, poised to strike. Ethan grinned, sweat beading on his brow. "A few sword fights," he quipped. "And a few battles you couldn't dream of." The crowd scoffed, but some courtiers whispered, their eyes wavering as they realized this human wasn't an easy mark. The duel stretched on, a deadly dance of white and purple light clashing, illuminating the eternal pit like an energy storm. Klyth was faster, her technique perfect, each move precise as if programmed, but Ethan was strong and unpredictable, his unorthodox Terran tactics throwing her off. He used raw power to repel an attack, his sword sweeping wide, grazing Klyth's sapphire armor, leaving a glowing scratch. She stepped back, her violet eyes widening in shock, a flicker of respect breaking through for the first time. "You've fought before," she remarked, her voice softer, reassessing her foe. "A few times," Ethan repeated, his grin unwavering, though his breaths grew heavy. The crowd shifted from jeers to anticipation, sensing the unexpected balance. Some Klythian warriors leaned forward, their tentacles twitching with excitement. Varkis, still smiling, gripped his throne tighter, his crimson eyes flashing with irritation. Ethan noticed and decided to push the fight to its climax. He feigned an opening, slowing his steps as if fatigued. Klyth, like a predator smelling blood, lunged, her blade flashing toward his heart. But Ethan spun, quick as lightning, his sword knocking her weapon from her hand. Before she could react, he closed in, his blade hovering at her throat, its white light bathing her silver face. "Surrender," Ethan said, his voice low but firm, his breath misting in the pit's cold air. Klyth stared at him, her violet eyes flashing with shock and something deeper, respect, or perhaps more. "I surrender," she whispered, her voice carrying through the pit's deathly silence. The crowd froze, disbelief etched on their faces. Varkis shot to his feet, his forearms slamming the throne, his face darkening with rage, his crimson eyes burning into Ethan. But before he could speak, a deafening explosion rocked the eastern grandstand. Black smoke billowed, mingled with panicked screams. A group of Klythians in gray armor, their faces hidden behind spiral-carved metal masks, stormed in, their energy weapons firing wildly, red beams tearing through the air. "Kill the human!" one shouted, his voice amplified through a device. Ethan yanked Klyth down, dodging a beam that grazed his head, his sword still gripped tight. "Friends of yours?" he asked, his tone sardonic, his eyes scanning the attackers. Klyth shook her head, her violet eyes sharp with alertness, retrieving her fallen blade. "No. The Grey Circle, extremists against offworlders. They're not with the court." Ethan smirked, his armor clinking as he took a fighting stance. "Then we've got work to do." The crowd panicked, the grandstands shaking, and the eternal pit became a battlefield as Ethan and Klyth, once foes, now stood back to back, ready to face the new storm. The eternal pit turned into a war zone in an instant, black smoke from the explosion swirling, blending with the purple glow of the massive energy columns. Screams from the floating grandstands echoed, mingling with the hiss of energy weapons and the clang of metal. Ethan Hayes and Klyth, moments ago locked in a duel to the death, now stood back to back at the pit's heart, facing the Grey Circle's onslaught. The gray-armored rebels, their faces hidden behind spiral-carved metal masks, moved like specters, their weapons firing red beams that shredded the air. Ethan swung his Klythian energy sword, its white blade slicing through an attacker's armor, sparks flying as it met resistance. "Not bad, human!" Klyth shouted over the chaos, retrieving her fallen energy blade, her body spinning, cutting through two rebels with lightning speed, their metallic blood splattering the black stone. "You're not half bad yourself, warrior!" Ethan shot back, his smirk flashing despite the sweat on his brow. He drew a concealed pistol, an old but reliable Terran weapon, and dropped a rebel aiming at Klyth, the bullet piercing the mask, smoke rising from the wound. The crowd, regaining some composure, began cheering, though it was unclear who they rooted for, the defiant human or Klythia's undefeated champion. Ethan and Klyth moved like a fated pair, back to back, complementing each other's strikes. He used brute force to repel foes, while she glided like a breeze, her energy blades spinning, slicing through gray armor like paper. A larger rebel charged Ethan, wielding a massive energy hammer, its head glowing like a small star. Ethan dodged, feeling the heat as the weapon grazed his face, then swung his sword, severing the hammer's haft. The attacker roared, but before he could recover, Klyth vaulted over Ethan, her blade piercing the rebel's chest, dropping him in a pool of metallic blood. "Learn to coordinate, human," she said, her tone teasing but her violet eyes flashing with admiration. Ethan laughed, dropping another foe with a shot. "I'm trying, lady!" The battle raged, but Klythian guards finally arrived, flooding from stone gates like a silver-armored tide. They subdued the gray circle, but not before the pit was littered with bodies and scorch marks. As the last rebel fell, Ethan and Klyth stood amid the wreckage, breathing heavily, blood and sweat mingling. The crowd fell silent, their gazes wavering between awe and fear. Emperor Varkis, from his floating throne, shot to his feet, his forearms slamming the stone, the sound like thunder. "You failed, Klyth!" he roared, pointing at her, his metallic claw gleaming. "And you, human, brought chaos to my palace! You dare turn my sacred arena into a battlefield!" Klyth knelt, her silver hair falling across her face, her head bowed, but her violet eyes burned with defiance. "Forgive me, my emperor," she said, her voice steady. Ethan stood tall, sword still in hand, his gaze locked on Varkis, fearless. "Chaos?" he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Those were your mess, not mine. If you can't control your own house, don't blame me." The crowd buzzed, some courtiers whispering, but Varkis's cold laugh cut through, a cruel smile on his metallic lips. "No forgiveness," he declared, his voice drowning all sound. "Klyth, for this disgrace you are banished. And to punish this human's arrogance, you'll be bound to him, his eternal companion, exiled from Klythia immediately." The crowd erupted in whispers, Ethan stunned, Klyth's head snapping up, her violet eyes blazing with horror and rage. "My emperor, please," she began, but Varkis cut her off, his voice sharp as a blade. "Silence! The ritual begins now." Ethan stepped forward to protest, but a squad of Klythian guards surrounded them, weapons glinting, forcing them to move. They were led through obsidian corridors, the faint purple glow of luminescent stones casting shadows on their tense faces. The binding ritual took place in a small chamber deep within the palace, where glowing stones hung, casting cold blue light. A Klythian priest, serpentine with pearlescent skin, approached, his pupilless eyes scanning Ethan and Klyth. He wrapped an energy cord around their wrists, the cord blazing like liquid fire, searing their skin. Ethan gritted his teeth, feeling strange energy seep into him, while Klyth stood rigid, her violet eyes burning with fury. The cord melted into their skin, leaving a faintly glowing tattoo on both wrists, an unbreakable curse. "You are one," the priest intoned, his voice echoing from some abyss. Ethan looked at Klyth, seeing rage and pain in her eyes. "I didn't want this," he said softly, his voice sincere. "Neither did I," she replied, her voice ice-cold, turning away, her silver hair hiding her face. An hour later they boarded a small Terran shuttle, its hull scarred from countless interstellar flights. As the opulent Klythian palace faded into the cosmic dark, Klyth sat silently in the co-pilot's seat, her violet eyes staring into the endless void, wordless. Ethan, at the controls, checked the systems, trying to break the oppressive silence. 3 days to Earth, he said gently. "We should talk about this." Klyth glanced at him, her gaze sharp as a blade. "Talk about what? I've lost everything, my rank, my honor, my home. Do you know what that means to a Klythian warrior?" Ethan leaned closer, his blue eyes steady. "You fought like hell out there," he said, his voice earnest. "There's no shame in losing a fair fight. And taking on those gray circle goons? You're the best I've ever seen." Klyth stared, surprised by his sincerity, then looked away, her voice softening. "You don't understand my culture. A Klythian warrior doesn't fail. Failure is death with honor, but surviving in disgrace? That's a curse." Ethan fell silent, thinking of his own years of battle, lost comrades, and the resilience that kept him going. Maybe, he said quietly. But on Earth, we believe surviving is a chance to fight another day. Klyth didn't respond, but her gaze softened, as if seeing him in a new light, as the shuttle sped silently through the cosmic dark. On the second day aboard the small Terran shuttle, space was as silent as a tomb, broken only by the faint hum of the aging engines and the pale green glow of the control panels bathing Ethan Hayes' face. He sat in the pilot's seat, his sharp blue eyes scanning the screens, checking the course to Earth. Klyth, in the co-pilot's chair, remained wordless, her deep violet eyes fixed on the endless void where stars twinkled like reminders of her lost home. The faint tattoo on her wrist, a remnant of the binding ritual, pulsed weakly, a curse that refused to fade. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, but Ethan hadn't yet found a way to crack the icy wall Klyth had built. A sudden, deafening explosion rocked the shuttle, the control panels flashing red with warnings. The floor shuddered as if torn apart, and Klyth sprang up, her warrior instincts kicking in. "We're under attack!" she shouted, her voice slicing through the blaring alarms. Ethan lunged for the controls, his hands gripping the yoke, eyes darting to the radar. A pirate ship loomed on the screen, its patchwork hull of rusted metal bearing the Zorith clan's mark, a skull with 6 glowing red eyes. Its energy cannons unleashed purple beams, tearing through the cosmic dark, aimed straight at their tiny craft. "They're using a tractor beam," Ethan growled, his fingers flying across the controls, trying to break free from the invisible grip tightening around the shuttle. Klyth dashed to the auxiliary systems, her slender hands moving with astonishing speed, scanning the data. "Someone altered our coordinates!" she yelled, her violet eyes blazing with fury. "We've been lured into Zorith space!" Their eyes met for a fleeting moment, a shared realization dawning. Varkes was behind this. "He doesn't want us to survive," Ethan snarled, rerouting all reserve power to the engines. The shuttle groaned, its hull creaking as if about to shatter, but it broke free, hurtling toward a nearby planet, a gray-green orb floating in the darkness. The Zorith pirates gave chase, their cannons firing relentlessly, purple beams grazing the shuttle, leaving blackened scorch marks. "We're entering the atmosphere!" Ethan shouted, his hands white-knuckling the yoke as the shuttle shook violently, red warning lights pulsing like blood. "Stabilizers are shot!" He felt the heat of friction as the craft tore through the planet's atmosphere, screens screeching with failure alerts. Klyth strapped in, eerily calm, as if accustomed to dancing with death. "Can you land this thing?" she asked, her voice steady but sharp. Ethan flashed a tense grin, sweat beading on his brow. "Land or crash, just watch!" He yanked the yoke, fighting to stabilize, as the planet below revealed a chaotic landscape, dense jungles mixed with red deserts, swirled by dust clouds. The shuttle plummeted, ripping through the jungle canopy, branches snapping loudly, skidding across a rocky plain before halting in a cloud of smoke and flame. Ethan and Klyth stumbled from their seats, coughing in the stifling air. "Still alive?" Ethan asked, checking his pistol and energy sword. Klyth nodded, grabbing a survival pack, her energy blade hovering beside her. "For now," she replied, her violet eyes scanning the sky where the Zorith ship's lights flickered through the clouds. "The pirates will hunt us. We need to move." They pushed through the jungle, sharp branches clawing at their armor, the scent of resin and damp earth filling their lungs. In the distance, a settlement appeared, its ramshackle buildings glowing with energy signs, mingling with the noise of a night market and the aroma of alien spices. The town was a chaotic blend of galactic species, mercenaries with mechanical wings, squat traders with compound eyes, and rusted robots clanking along the streets. The roads pulsed with color from energy billboards, alive with strange music, arguments, and the smell of burnt metal and fried food. Klyth, unaccustomed to such disorder, stayed close to Ethan, her violet eyes warily scanning the crowd. "Stick with me," Ethan whispered, his hand lightly on her shoulder, guiding her through narrow alleys. They found a small inn, a leaning building with a flickering sign reading, "Safe Rest." The owner, a lizard-like creature with a rasping voice, led them to a cramped room with a single bed and a dust-caked window. Ethan dropped his pack and set up an old Terran comm device he'd brought along. Kayla stood by the window, her silver hair glinting under the market's lights, her violet eyes watching the crowd below. "Is your world like this?" she asked, her voice soft, stripped of its usual frost. Ethan joined her, looking out at a group of multi-species kids playing with an energy ball. "Different, but chaotic in its own way," he replied, his voice low. "We call it diversity. It makes us stronger, each person bringing a piece of the world." Kayla turned, her violet eyes softening, as if his words touched something deep within. "On Klythia, different sparks war," she said, a hint of regret in her tone. "Everything must be unified, or destroyed." Ethan smiled, catching the faint scent of her breath, strange, like heated metal and distant flowers. "Earth used to be like that," he admitted, "but we're learning to coexist. Maybe you'll see it when we get there." Their gazes locked, the distance between them shrinking, but the comm device buzzed, shattering the moment. Ethan hurried to it, connecting with Commander Lara Torres on Earth. "Ethan, report." Torres's voice crackled through static. He quickly recounted the Zorath attack and their suspicions about Varkis. "Stay put," Torres ordered. "A rescue ship will arrive in 3 days. Be careful, Ethan. If Varkis orchestrated this, more danger's coming." Ethan nodded, cutting the link, then glanced at Kayla, now inspecting her energy blade. 3 days, he said. "We'll make it." Kayla nodded, her violet eyes flashing with resolve, but also a new spark, a budding trust. They left the in-shadowed corner, the safe rest, cyan flickering on Ethan's scarred armor. Night fell, the planet's 2 moons hanging in the sky, casting a silver veil over the chaotic alleys below. Ethan tucked the comm device away, the weight of Torres's warning heavy on his shoulders. Kayla walked close, her silver hair shimmering, her violet eyes scanning the dark like a warrior never at rest. They returned silently to the cramped room, the door creaking shut, locking out both danger and unanswered questions. Under the moonlight filtering through the dusty window, Ethan looked at Kayla, feeling a strange warmth between them, as if the darkness whispered a chance to understand each other. Night cloaked the alien town, the light of the planet's 2 moons streaming through the dusty window, bathing the inn's cramped room in silver. Ethan Hayes and Kayla lay on the narrow mattress, their bodies unavoidably close in the desert's biting cold. The thin blanket offered little warmth, their breaths mingling in the air. Kayla is carrying a strange scent of metal and alien flowers, Ethan's of leather and sweat. Darkness enveloped them, pierced only by the faint hum of the damaged comm device on the table and the muffled din of the night market outside. Ethan lay on his back, his blue eyes fixed on the stained ceiling, trying to shake memories of the eternal pit and the binding ritual that chained him to the Klythian warrior. "Why did you become an ambassador?" Kayla's voice broke the silence, soft in the dark, devoid of her usual chill. She lay on her side, her silver hair spilling across the mattress, her violet eyes glinting under the moonlight. Ethan pondered, memories of 7 years in the Marine Corps flooding back, battles on distant worlds, fallen comrades, endless nights of solitude. "I was a soldier," he said, his voice low. "Saw too much death, too much senselessness. I wanted to build peace, stop wars before they start." Kayla murmured, a trace of admiration in her tone. "Noble. And you?" Ethan asked, turning to face her. "Why become Varkis' warrior?" Kayla fell silent, her violet eyes lost in the shadows, as if peering into a buried past. "I was chosen young," she said at last, her voice tinged with regret. "Trained to serve, to be Klythia's sharpest blade. There was no other path." Ethan studied her, catching a rare vulnerability in her silver face, a crack in her unyielding armor. "Do you regret it?" he asked gently. Kayla met his gaze, her eyes flashing with pain. "Regret is meaningless," she replied, but her voice trembled, as if hiding a deep wound. As sleep claimed them, her hand brushed his, and Ethan felt a strange warmth, as if the energy cord on their wrists hummed faintly. Morning came, the planet's red sun piercing the window, rousing them. Ethan and Kayla left the inn, blending into the chaotic market's crowd. Makeshift stalls sold everything from ship parts to pungent alien foods. Multi-species beings, squat traders with compound eyes, warriors with mechanical wings, jostled through the alleys, their shouts and laughter unending. Ethan led, his armored boots clinking on the stone, his pistol hidden under his jacket. Klyth followed, her energy blade hovering at her side, her violet eyes scanning the crowd for threats. They paused at a stall piled with electronics, where an octopus-like merchant, its tentacles adorned with gold rings, hawked wares. As Ethan haggled, a massive public screen in the market square flared to life, broadcasting a message from Klythia. Varkis's image appeared, his crimson eyes blazing, his voice thundering. Klyth, the traitor, has stolen military secrets and fled with an Earth spy. A vast reward for their capture, dead or alive. The crowd stirred, curious eyes scanning, and Ethan pulled Klyth behind the stall, his heart pounding. "He's framing us to hunt us down," he whispered, his voice tight with anger. Klyth clenched her jaw, her violet eyes burning with rage. "I know his plan, an attack on Earth's data colonies. He sent me away because I opposed it, because I dared defy him." They hurried back to the inn, Ethan working feverishly on the comm device, his hands deftly weaving wires and chips. Klyth stood guard at the door, her energy blades spinning, ready for any threat. She caught his eye, flashing a rare, playful smile that caught him off guard. "Focus, human," she teased. "Other matters can wait." Ethan laughed, the tension easing. "You're promising, warrior." But the moment shattered as the door splintered open, wood flying. A band of bounty hunters stormed in, led by Zorak, a hulking Klythian in gleaming black armor, his yellow eyes glowing like a predator's. "Hand them over!" Zorak roared, his energy sword humming. Klyth activated her blades, lunging like a whirlwind, cutting down a hunter before he could fire. Ethan drew his pistol, dropping two others, the gunshots ringing in the cramped room. Furniture toppled, debris flying, the room a battlefield. Zorak charged Ethan, his massive strength pinning him to the floor, his sword inches from Ethan's throat, the blade's heat searing his skin. "It's over, human!" Zorak snarled. But Klyth vaulted over a table, her blade piercing Zorak's chest, metallic blood spraying. He collapsed, and Ethan scrambled up, gasping. "Thanks," he said, his eyes flashing gratitude. Klyth nodded, but there was no time to rest. They bolted out, racing through the chaotic market, weaving through the panicked crowd. In a dark alley, Ethan checked the comm device, uncovering a shocking twist, a tiny blinking light inside, a Klythian tracker. "Varkis knows where we are!" Klyth shouted, smashing the device, its fragments scattering on the stone. Ethan grabbed her hand, his gaze resolute. "We'll find another way to contact Earth," he said. Klyth looked at him, her violet eyes flickering with trust, though danger still lurked in the town's shadows. The town's slums were a labyrinth of shadowy alleys, where the planet's two moons cast faint light through gaps between patchwork buildings. The stench of oil, garbage, and smoke stung the air, mingling with the murmurs of outlaws, mercenaries, smugglers, and fugitives from across the galaxy. Ethan Hayes and Klyth moved swiftly through the dark, their armor clinking, their eyes scanning every corner. The faint tattoos on their wrists, remnants of the binding ritual, pulsed weakly, a reminder of the invisible chain binding them. Ethan led, his pistol gripped tight, while Klyth followed, her energy blade hovering, ready to slice through any threat. They reached a rundown mechanic's shop, where Zykra, a spider-like engineer, worked amid tangled wires and components. Zykra's 8 hairy legs, each adorned with metal rings, skittered as his 4 red eyes appraised Ethan and Klyth with wary curiosity. "New comm device?" Zykra hissed, his voice like metal on stone. "Fine, but it's costly. And no trouble in my shop." Ethan nodded, handing over a bag of Galactic credits, his blue eyes locked on Zykra. Klyth stood by the door, her violet eyes vigilant, but Ethan noticed her occasionally clutching her stomach, her silver face briefly twisting in pain. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, stepping closer. Klyth brushed it off, her silver hair swaying. Just strange food, she said, but her uneasy glance didn't fool him. Ethan frowned but didn't press, turning to watch Psychra work. Psychra finished the comm device after hours, a compact unit with a scratched metal casing but perfect function. As he handed it over, the spider tilted his head, his voice dropping. Word is, Varkis fears an ancient prophecy about a silver warrior, a Klythian who'll topple him with an off-world ally. Folks like you should watch your backs. Ethan glanced at Klyth, his heart racing. Her silver hair, sapphire armor, and unyielding spirit, everything fit the prophecy. Klyth said nothing, but her violet eyes flickered with unease, as if she too questioned her role. Thanks, Ethan said to Psychra, his voice low, pocketing the device, his mind reeling with thoughts of their possible destiny. That night, as they rested in a slum hideout, the Grey Circle, rebels from the Eternal Pit, ambushed them. Grey-armored figures emerged from the shadows, their energy weapons humming, red beams tearing through the air. Ethan and Klyth fought as one, a perfect machine. Klyth spun like a tempest, her energy blades slicing through 3 rebels, metallic blood splattering the alley walls. Ethan dropped 2 more, his pistol shots ringing amid the chaos. But a hidden rebel fired a stun beam into Klyth's chest. She collapsed, her sapphire armor flashing, her breath shallow. Ethan roared, shooting the attacker through his mask, then dragged Klyth into a narrow alley, dodging the remaining beams. In the dark, Ethan checked Klyth, his heart pounding as her wrist tattoo glowed unnaturally, radiating heat like fire. This isn't just a binding, Klyth whispered, her voice weak, her silver face contorted in pain. It's a curse. If I betray Klythia, it'll kill me. Ethan froze, rage surging like a tide. Varkis wanted you dead from the start, he said, his voice trembling with fury, his hand gripping hers, feeling the tattoo's heat. Klyth met his gaze, her violet eyes filled with pain but also defiance. He fears me, she murmured. Fears what I could become. They activated the new comm device, connecting to Commander Lara Torres on Earth through static. Ethan, report. Torres's voice cut through sharp. He recounted Varkis' plot, the prophecy, and the curse. Rescue ship arrives in 24 hours, Torres said, her voice tense. Bad news, Klythian fleets are moving on Theta. Hold out. Ethan and Klyth exchanged a glance, resolve flaring. We'll destroy the Grey Circle's signal tower, Ethan said, his voice firm. Stop them from reporting our position to Varkis. Klyth nodded, though weakened, her energy blade hovering like a vow to fight. The mission led them through alleys strewn with trash and energy traps, where the Grey Circle patrolled like predators. Hiding behind a crumbling wall, Klyth spoke suddenly, her voice low. I once saved an Earth colony from Varkis, she said, her violet eyes distant. I opposed his attack plans, and that's why he suspected my betrayal. Ethan looked at her, admiration mingling with something deeper, a bond beyond the curse. You did the right thing, he said, his voice sincere. And now we'll do the right thing together. Klyth gave a faint smile, a flicker of hope, as they pressed on, the slum's darkness swallowing them, but the light of their new alliance glowing faintly. The Grey Circle's stronghold lay deep in the planet's red desert, a ramshackle fortress of rusted steel and black stone, encircled by energy pillars pulsing with faint purple light, humming like the heartbeat of a colossal beast. The dust-choked night sky obscured the moons, making darkness an ally for Ethan Hayes and Klyth as they infiltrated. Ethan led, his pistol grip tight, his sharp blue eyes scanning the narrow corridors where energy traps hovered, emitting soft, menacing hums. Klyth followed, her energy blades spinning around her, her silver hair glinting in the dim light, her violet eyes resolute despite her body's weakness from the curse. The tattoos on their wrists, remnants of the binding ritual, flickered like warnings, but there was no time to falter. The mission to destroy the signal tower turned brutal from the start. Dozens of Grey Circle rebels, clad in spiral-carved gray armor, poured from the corridors, their energy weapons firing red beams that shredded the air. Ethan dropped 2 with precise shots, his pistol's cracks echoing amid the chaos, while Klyth charged like a whirlwind, her blades slicing through armor, metallic blood splattering the stone walls. They fought as a seamless unit, Ethan's raw power clearing paths, Klythia's lightning speed felling foes before they could react. But mid-battle, Klythia collapsed, clutching her wrist where the tattoo blazed, radiating heat like a furnace. "Klythia!" Ethan shouted, dragging her behind a stone pillar, dodging beams tearing through the space. He checked her wrist, his heart pounding as the tattoo glowed fiercely, its patterns like liquid fire searing her skin. "You're not giving up," he said, his voice urgent, pulling a dagger from his armor to carefully cut out a tiny locking device embedded in the tattoo, likely the curse's trigger. It shattered, and Klythia gasped, the pain easing, though her violet eyes still shimmered with agony. She gave a faint smile, a rare expression that tugged at Ethan's heart. "You care about me, human?" she asked, her teasing voice trembling. Ethan gripped her hand, his gaze unwavering. "More than you know," he admitted, his voice low, feeling a bond deeper than the curse. They pressed on, breaching deeper into the fortress, navigating traps and rebels to reach the signal tower, a massive metal spire emitting a howling energy wave. Ethan rigged explosives while Klythia stood guard, her blade felling a final rebel. As the tower collapsed in a blazing explosion, smoke and fire soaring, they uncovered a shocking twist from stolen data. The Grey Circle didn't oppose Varkes. They served him. Varkes had staged the Eternal Pit attack to justify Klythia's exile, knowing she threatened the prophecy of the Silver Warrior. "He manipulated everything," Klythia whispered, her violet eyes burning with rage, her hand tightening on her blade. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice firm. "He'll pay." Returning to the town, a covert message arrived via Zyker's device, projecting a hologram of an elderly Klythian, Viscount Myrith, his wrinkled metallic skin and deep violet eyes radiating wisdom. "Klythia, my student," Myrith said, his voice echoing from the past. "The prophecy speaks of a child of two species, born of the Silver Warrior and an Offworlder, destined to unite the stars. Varkes fears that child, fears its power." Ethan and Klythia froze, their gazes locking, realizing the curse on Klythia's wrist might tie to her unknown ability to bear such a child. "He wants us dead before it happens," Ethan said, his voice trembling with anger and resolve. Myrith nodded through the hologram. "Survive, and bring the truth to Klythia." The Terran rescue ship, SS Horizon, landed in the desert the next morning, but before they could board, Zorith pirates, hired by Varkes, ambushed. Patchwork ships dove from the sky, their energy cannons firing purple beams, shaking the ground. Ethan hijacked a rebel skimmer, its engine roaring as he sped through the desert, red dust billowing. Klythia, pressed against his back, fired an energy rifle, downing two enemy ships, the explosions lighting her silver face. "Faster, human!" she shouted, her voice tinged with thrill. Ethan grinned, swerving to dodge a beam. "Just hold on, warrior!" They moved as one, a perfect war machine, weaving through gunfire to reach the rescue ship. They leaped aboard the SS Horizon, the hatch sealing behind them, but Klythia suddenly collapsed into Ethan's arms. Her wrist tattoo flared again, radiating heat as if burning her from within. Ethan held her tight, his heart racing, his blue eyes filled with worry. "You have to hold on," he whispered, his voice desperate, as the ship launched into space, leaving the red desert and Varkes' dark secrets behind. In the dim cargo bay, Ethan realized their journey wasn't just about survival. It was about shaping the future of two species, with Klythia at its heart. Aboard the SS Horizon, space was a silent grave, disturbed only by the low hum of engines and the pale blue glow of medical bay consoles. Klythia lay on a bed, her silver face pale, her wrist tattoo flickering weakly, the curse's power fading. Ethan Hayes sat beside her, clutching her hand, his blue eyes locked on her, unwavering despite his exhaustion. The ship's doctor, a middle-aged woman with neatly tied gray hair, entered, holding a data screen. "I have results," she said, her voice steady, her eyes flickering with surprise and caution. "Klythia, you're pregnant." The words detonated in the bay. Ethan tightened his grip on Klythia's hand, his heart pounding, while Klythia lifted her head, her violet eyes wide with shock. Impossible, she whispered. Klythian reproductive cycles occur only every few decades, under specific conditions. The doctor tilted the screen, displaying complex genetic data. The child carries markers of both Klythian and human DNA, she said, her voice tinged with awe. It's unprecedented, but it explains your unusual symptoms. Ethan and Klyth exchanged a glance, Viscount Myratha's prophecy crystallizing. This child was the prophecy's fulfillment, the one to unite the stars, the reason Varkis wanted them dead. Varkis knows, Klyth said, her voice trembling with anger and fear, her hand instinctively resting on her stomach. Ethan squeezed her hand, his gaze resolute. He won't touch you or the baby, he vowed, his voice low but fierce. I swear it. The brief calm shattered as alarms blared, red lights flashing across the ship. Klythian fleet! An officer shouted over the intercom. Ethan and Klyth, despite their fatigue, raced from the medical bay to the bridge. Through the observation window, they saw dozens of Klythian warships, their metallic hulls gleaming like predators, encircling the horizon in the cosmic dark. Their energy cannons fired purple beams, rattling the ship's shields. We fight, Ethan said, his eyes blazing with the unyielding spirit of a Marine Corps veteran. Klyth nodded, though weakened, her energy blades hovering like a promise of battle. Ethan manned the main turret, his hands flying over controls, firing brilliant plasma beams at the Klythian ships. Each shot lit the void, explosions blooming like deadly fireworks among the stars. Klyth, with a warrior's agility, led the ship's combat team, guiding Terran soldiers in battle armor, repelling small enemy boarding crafts. Drop the starboard ship's shields! She shouted, her voice icy, her blades slicing through a Klythian intruder. Ethan glanced at her from the turret, his heart swelling with admiration. In a fleeting moment amid the chaos, Klyth turned, catching his gaze, and flashed a rare smile, as if sharing a secret across the edge of death. Mid-battle, Klyth pulled Ethan aside, her voice low but urgent. I secretly sent Varkis' war plans to Myrath, she revealed, her violet eyes burning with resolve. It'll spark a rebellion on Klythia. If Myra succeeds, Varkis loses everything. Ethan gripped her shoulders, his eyes alight. You're a genius, warrior. But before they could continue, an explosion rocked the ship, throwing them to the floor. As they rose, a hologram flickered on the bridge. Myrath, his wrinkled metallic skin glowing with hope, standing amid a fleet of rebel Klythian warships. Klyth, Ethan, he said, his voice resounding. We've seized part of Varkis' fleet. Hold on! Myrath's forces charged, turning the tide, forcing Varkis' loyalists to retreat in disarray. The battered ESS Horizon reached Earth safely, landing at a military base under a vibrant blue sky. Klyth was granted asylum, and in a new medical bay, she lay beside Ethan, their hands clasped, their eyes sharing a new truth. They were no longer reluctant allies but a family. Myrath contacted them one last time via hologram, his face radiant with hope. You are the bridge between the stars, he said. Come to Klythia, lead the new regime, bring peace to our people. Ethan looked at Klyth, his blue eyes blazing. Ready to make history? Klyth smiled, her hand on her stomach, feeling the life within. With you? Always. As Earth's sunlight streamed through the window, they knew their journey was only beginning. 3 years ago, when the ESS Horizon landed on Klythia under a sky ablaze with metallic hues, Ethan Hayes and Klyth stepped out, hands clasped, eyes burning with faith in a warless future. Klythia's capital, once Varkis' fortress, echoed with the rebellion led by Viscount Myrath. Black stone streets bore scorch marks, crystal towers lay shattered, but amid the ashes, they saw opportunity. They worked tirelessly, Ethan with a Terran soldier's grit, Klyth with a Klythian warrior's fire, to build a new regime, a place where stars no longer clashed by the blade. When Arya was born, her silver hair and piercing blue eyes a mirror of her parents', they knew the prophecy had come true, and their story was only beginning to shine. 3 years later, on Klythia, the Temple of Glory stood majestic in the capital, a colossal structure of black stone and crystal, reflecting the twin moons' light like an eternal flame. The intergalactic summit unfolded in its central hall, where delegates from Earth, Klythia, and dozens of neutral worlds gathered, their gleaming armor and vibrant robes blending in an air of hope. Ethan Hayes and Klyth, now peace ambassadors, stood before the council table, their gazes steady as they signed the Pact of the Stars, a treaty uniting species in peace and cooperation. The crowd erupted in applause, cheers echoing through the hall's carved stone pillars, as if history itself bore witness. Ethan, in polished Terran alloy armor, his tousled brown hair now neatly combed, looked at Klyth with a proud smile. She wore a new sapphire armor, her silver hair cascading, her violet eyes sparkling with joy and defiance. The tattoos on their wrists, once symbols of a curse, were now faint memories, replaced by silver bracelets engraved with each other's names, tokens of chosen freedom. As the signing ended, a clear voice rang from the hall's entrance. "Dad! Mom!" A young girl ran forward, her silver hair shimmering like moonlight, her blue eyes, Ethan's, but with Klyth's sharp brilliance, gleaming. Arya, their daughter, leaped into Ethan's arms, laughing brightly. Ethan lifted her, his heart swelling at how a small child had reshaped two worlds. The crowd smiled, some delegates whispering of the prophecy's child. But Ethan and Klyth focused only on Arya, their eyes sharing a profound love. Viscount Myrith, now Klythia's interim leader, approached, his wrinkled violet eyes glowing with pride. "You've achieved what the prophecy only dreamed," he said, his voice deep. "Klythia is no longer an empire of war but a beacon of peace." Ethan nodded, still holding Arya. "It started with a duel," he said, his familiar smirk flashing. Klyth glanced at him, her eyes teasing. "A duel I lost," she replied, her voice warm with joy. After the summit, Ethan, Klyth, and Arya stepped onto the temple's balcony, overlooking Klythia's capital, aglow under the twin moons. Crystal and metal towers soared, reflecting light like a sea of liquid stars. Spacecraft glided across the sky, carrying traders, diplomats, and seekers of new opportunities in a peaceful galaxy. Klyth leaned into Ethan, her silver hair brushing his cheek, her breath carrying the familiar scent of alien flowers and heated metal, now a home to him. "From Varkis's curse, we found everything," she whispered, her hand stroking Arya's hair as the girl pointed excitedly at passing ships. Ethan nodded, reflecting on their journey, from the eternal pit, where they were foes, to the dark alleys of the slums, where they became allies, to the horizon's medical bay, where they became family. "Losing to me was the best thing that ever happened to you," he teased, his blue eyes twinkling. Klyth laughed, a rare, radiant sound like starlight, echoing in the cool balcony air. "Maybe," she said, tilting her head. "But I want a rematch, human. This time I'll win." Ethan laughed, pulling her into an embrace, feeling the warmth of her and Arya in his arms. Under Klythia's silver moonlight they kissed, a deep kiss carrying memories of battles, curses, and triumphs. What began as a defiance in a cold palace had become the greatest story of the stars, a tale of love, resilience, and the power of human and Klythian standing together. As Arya giggled, pointing at a bright star, Ethan and Klyth knew their future, and that of the galaxy, was only beginning to shine.